This film should have been one of the biggest hits of the 90s. Some of the biggest young stars, a writer at the top of his game, and one of the most ambitious directors on the planet. With a mixture of chemicals like that, there was no way this film could fail, right? Wrong. We're talking about The Faculty. The 1998 cult classic is saturated in the influence of a dozen successful franchises that came before it. It's a teen slasher at its core, but with a weird sci-fi twist. A film about a group of teenagers who are trying to avoid getting killed by a high school faculty who, one by one, fall prey to an assimilating alien hive mind. Faculty draws heavily from films like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Stepford Wives, and The Thing, while utilizing an ensemble cast of young performers that feels like it was pulled straight out of a John Hughes movie. The film has celebrity performances in all the right places. Jon Stewart, Salma Hayek, and Robert Patrick all deliver high-quality performances, and the young cast of attractive Hollywood newcomers gave us some of the first big screen performances from Josh Hartnett, Jordana Brewster, and Clea Duvall. Even Usher. The screenplay was written by Kevin Williamson, who was rapidly developing a reputation for penning successful teen Scream franchises, with hits like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Dimension Films tapped Robert Rodriguez to direct, who was just coming off a cult classic of his own, From Dusk Till Dawn. Everything was pointing to The Faculty being a genre-defining box office success. So what happened here? How could a film that on paper was so perfect fail so hard in the box office? Today, we're going to take a look at how studios tried to replicate success and sometimes missed the mark entirely. On the heels of Wes Craven's 1996 classic Scream, horror films were going through a sort of slasher exploitation film renaissance. Scream was a huge success, and to this day has grossed almost $200 million. Sure, those aren't Avenger numbers, but for a horror film, they might as well be. If you adjust those numbers for inflation and rising ticket prices, Scream comes in as one of the highest grossing horror films of all time. This was big news for Dimension, a studio which was struggling to find their next hit. They tried to breathe some life into the Halloween franchise, to no avail.
Power of the Runes stopped him.
But the production companies seemed to be finding their groove once they began distributing Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn. When Scream was released, Dimension Films became a household name. That $15 million film ended up generating a 1,233% increase in revenue, which is a profit margin far too large to ignore. So, Dimension did what any other studio run by money would do in that situation. Try to emulate and copy what they did to the letter, and hopefully generate that success again. See, the problem here is that other studios weren't blind to Scream's success either. Everyone at this time was hunting for the next teen slasher franchise. Not wanting to be outdone by an imitation of their newly productive cash cow, Dimension tapped Scream's writer to pen another screenplay, in hopes that he could get lightning to strike twice in the exact same place. They hired their most ambitious director, Robert Rodriguez, and they were off to work diligently on The Faculty. Shot on a budget of $15 million, which is the same budget Scream had to operate on. They hired A-list poster children to fill the various character tropes. You have the outcast, the nerd, the druggie, the jock, and the popular girl. A cast that had high hopes for this film as well. In a recent interview with Collider, Jordana Brewster thought after the film's release, everyone was going to be a huge teen star and unable to walk down the street.
We all thought it was going to be huge, and then turned out it wasn't so huge.
That's what Dimension anticipated as well. They hired a few known celebrities to fill out the supporting cast, which is something Scream did very well with Drew Barrymore and Henry Winkler, and even went as far to fill the Faculty's soundtrack with edgy, popular artists. It's from The Offspring, Garbage, Creed, and still didn't stop there. Collaborating with one of the 90s most popular clothing brands, Tommy Hilfiger, to create clothing advertisements featuring the main cast.
Bobby jeans make a scene.
Scream being released on December 20th, 1996 meant that The Faculty would obviously be slated for release on December 25th, 1998. Scream had appeared to pave a very smooth road for The Faculty, a road that they followed at every turn. But the film did not take off in the way Dimension wanted it to. It just didn't generate the numbers Scream did, and certainly not what was expected of it. It opened to a decent weekend of about 11 million, but ticket sales dwindled quickly. The film only ended up grossing a little over $40 million to date. It wasn't the 1,200% profit margin that they were hoping for, and this might have been due to a couple factors. The first being audience burnout. Scream's success started a race between pretty much every major studio to produce as many cheaply made teen slasher films as they possibly could. From 96 to 98 alone, audiences saw the release of Scream 2, I Know What You Did Last Summer 2, Disturbing Behavior, and Halloween H2O. That's a very short amount of time for audiences to see so many teenagers get chopped into pieces, and they were likely growing tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. The second thing was marketing. As unique as The Faculty might have been, the marketing for the film did very little to separate itself from any of those other teen slashers. Think about it this way. How did DC separate their cinematic universe of superheroes? Well, they decided to make them ultra dark for as long as humanly possible, which flew in the face of the comedic, bright undertones of the Marvel Universe. The Faculty is a turducken of genre. It's a teen thriller wrapped in a sci-fi movie and stuffed into a horror film. Nobody had ever really attempted to make a film like this, and the marketing did very little to prepare audiences for it. A marketing campaign that should have felt explosive and fun ended up feeling kind of flat and boring, and in some ways even obscure. See, horror is an extremely nuanced genre, with hundreds of tiny little subgenres lurking within it. Scream would be categorized as a slasher, whereas The Faculty is more sci-fi horror wrapped in a creature feature. Because of this, when you market the movie like it's Scream, you get audiences who expect to see another slasher and end up leaving feeling confused and disappointed, not ready to tell their friends what they even just saw. They thought they were going to see a movie about sociopathic teens murdering each other, not a parasitic alien taking over a school with brain slugs. So what exactly is The Faculty? Why am I talking about it now? It's a lesson in hype within any genre. Creating films doesn't mean creating them within a mold, it means molding something new within the confines of what's expected of you. What's a little scary about where we're at right now is film is undergoing its biggest war ever. It's fighting a battle to stay relevant on the biggest stage film could possibly be on. And instead of being a unique experience, lately film has started to become an experience that you can expect. One you can anticipate, one you can predict. See, the problem with studios is they think movies like The Faculty are bad. And based on everything I've said, you might think The Faculty is bad as well, but you'd be wrong. It's not that The Faculty is a bad movie, it's that The Faculty is a weird movie. It's a risk. And that is awesome. That alone is an accomplishment. It is a really unique film that walks in the footsteps of some of horror's greatest films, while being something altogether weird and individualistic in ways you might not recognize. And sure, it can feel a little silly, but it's a great love letter to the classic films that make sci-fi horror so great. The point of all of this is that there is never a time where history has frowned upon risk-taking in artistic mediums. Risks aren't always rewarded in art right away, but never once will you find someone that looks back on an artist that took a risk and said that that risk shouldn't have been taken. It might have failed, it might have flopped, it might have changed their career or changed their lives, but taking a risk in art is always better than being comfortable. That's it for today's episode. If you guys enjoyed this one, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, the whole 9 yards. On your screen right now should be 2 more episodes. You can click on either of those to stay right here, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.